Figma Make promises to bring your flat designs to life by creating interactive prototypes from a simple text prompt. Make is the latest addition to the Figma family, and I'm going to show you how it works. Firstly, by adding custom animation to a Figma site without writing any code, and then how Make can automatically prototype entire screens and even design new ones. So I have this design that I made for a recent YouTube video on Figma grids. So I'm just going to click on this desktop frame here and then right click. And if you want to see my key presses as well, they are in the bottom left corner there. And then I'm going to choose the option copy to Figma Sites. Now make sure you give your new file a name. I'm going to call this Make Demo. And move it out of your drafts when you get a chance. Good hygiene. Okay, so we have this within Figma Sites, but let's think about the new Make features that we can use. Now, you will see at the bottom, we now have in our toolbar an icon for Make, and the shortcut is E to do that. And if you press E to bring that up, you see that when we hover over this desktop page here, it gives us this code layer that we can click and insert in. So that is one way to do it. I'm just going to press escape and not do it that way this time. I'm going to select something directly that I have in my design. In this case, this text. So I'm going to press Command so I can deep select and then click with my left mouse button on this text. Now we have now our right panel menu has changed, and where we have this row of text here, we have an icon now, Make Code from Design. So I can click on that and then it will open up this Make window, which is how it looks basically when you also have a Figma Make file, which we can do later. So at the moment it has this text, this chat, and we can click on a split view and we can see the actual text there that's rendered, and then we can see the code that it is generated to actually produce that. And you can see it's got our font name in here, and it's done stuff for the letter spacing and all the rest of it. And then within the P tag, the paragraph, we have the actual text. Okay, so this will look pretty normal to you if you're familiar with code for the web. If you're not, then this will look new to you. Okay, but what we can do is we can just chat and describe here our idea, what we want. So I'm going to ask for an animated typewriter transition where each letter comes in one at a time. And what it will do is take a moment to think, and it will describe its logic and then write the code to produce this animation. And we get a little preview of that there here in the window, and we can click this icon on the top right, reload preview, and it spits it out for us there. And we can actually look into the code view here and see the code that it produces. So if you are able to edit code or just kind of think through this logically, you can actually, change these settings right here within the code. For example, the opacity here is completely 0 at the beginning. So you would think logically that means it's totally invisible. So you could maybe change that to 0.5. So it was there faintly and then it became darker. So that's the sort of things you can do, but I'll just delete that change. So if we just close now this Make window, we can see that that text has disappeared and it's been replaced by this code box. So it's now got a green outline around it instead of blue. And in our layers panel on the left here, we see that we have the Make icon because this is a code layer, as opposed to if I hover over the next part of the headline, that is a text layer. Okay, and it looks like it's moved kind of into the wrong grid here. So I'm just going to click and hold the left mouse button and drag it down into the cell that I want. And I want to just make sure that it's aligned to the bottom as it was before. I'm just using this time the icon on the far right to do that. Okay, well, now we can preview this whole page here. I've got this frame selected. I'm just going to use our usual preview here. We can use this play button or the shortcut there, the Option, Command and Enter. So here we have our page. Now, if I just reload this preview, you can see that the text actually animates out here. One at a time. Let's click that again. There we go. So we might want to add that same sort of code to this transition, obviously, because we want this second part of the headline to appear after that. So there's a few different ways you could do that. We could just go to this layer here in the layers panel on the grid and just duplicate that with the shortcut Command D. And then we could drag that over to where we want that to appear. Now let's maybe make it that end one for now. I'm going to select this text. You won't want to add anything else, and just cut the actual copy there, and then click on the text layer in the layers panel and press backspace just to delete that. Okay, so now on this second code layer here, which is this top one, you can see it's here in green, and I'm just going to drag that over to this cell here that I want it to appear in. And this time I want it to appear at the top. And now I want to edit the text that's within it. So I can go over here and click Edit Code in the top right. Now I could go through and, change this type where it appears within the code. I can also chat and say change text to, and I'm going to change the name of this code to headline part 2. Let's go ahead and preview this. So you can see now that this is not rendering or breaking, onto more lines. And plus, if we reload it, they were both loading at the same time. So let's go back in here and select this headline part 2. And I'm just going to change the width of that so it spans across all 3 columns, and the height can also fill the container there as well. So let's first of all try that and see how that appears. Okay, so now we have it where the type is breaking partway through a word. And you can actually see, if you open up the code view as it's working, it rewriting the code. So this is also a way for you to understand what's going on. Now, just going back to my original design, this line was actually in these last 2 cells here, and it was too wide. So what I need to do is actually move it back over there. So I'm going to zoom in and edit that layout. Okay, so that is now in the correct positioning. So we need to make sure that this second part of the line comes in second. So again, we can just click on it and we can think about a delay. Maybe let's just look at this. About 1 second, 1.5 seconds maybe. Let's go to edit code. And we're going to write in delay 1.5 seconds before starting. And it tells you what it's done. Introduce the start delay property, okay? And now we have that here, start delay 1.5. So that's going to be pretty easy for us to edit. You don't need to be an expert developer at this point. But that looks pretty good. You read the first part of the line, and then the second one appears. So that's pretty much perfect. Now, in this preview, we are seeing a standard sans serif font here. But if we go back to the design, we actually are seeing this monospace font used, which is Geist Mono. Now, this is because of a known issue in Figma Sites. It just doesn't have the ability yet to publish these non-default fonts or preview them. But we can use Make to get around this. So let's go again, this time to our toolbar, and press the Make icon, or the shortcut if you've already learned it, E. And then we're just going to put this code layer anywhere up here, okay? Now, I'm actually going to drag this code layer so it's just kind of at the top of our desktop here. And it's not necessarily going to be part of the layout or anything like that. So describe my idea. So I'm going to write a prompt here to ask it. Font used throughout the page is Geist Mono regular weight. Can you write some code for the head to ensure that this font is rendered in preview/browser? I don't know if this is going to work. Let's see what it does. So for a minute it said it couldn't solve it, but then it appears that it has. So let's just try this. We'll close this down. I'm going to rename this code layer to styles. And it appears that it's showing up here. So I'm just going to hide that and see if that will work. And it is not working. But if I show this, it does work. Because you can see that these other fonts here are rendered correctly. So I've said this works, changing all the fonts to Geist Mono, but it outputs a visible example layer. I want to hide this. So it's figured that out. Replace the visible demo UI with return null. So the component now only injects the Geist Mono font and no longer renders anything on screen. And it's working. We have now got our correct font and we have now got our animated text coming in. Just refresh that. And that has all come about simply through writing prompts and iterating our way there. Now we can not only use Make within Figma Sites, we can also create Figma Make files themselves. So let's do that now. We're going to make a new file and it's going to be a Make file. Now when this loads, the entire interface is kind of like that Make window that popped up in Sites. And it just asks us here, what do you want to make? Gives us some suggestions, but tells us at the bottom you can actually paste a Figma frame into here. I'm just going to move this keyboard shortcuts little area to the side there so we can see this. So let's paste the Figma frame in. So I'm going to go back to my Figma design file and use this frame here. Now, there's a few guidelines that Figma give with this. One is that you want to make sure you've removed any unnecessary elements because these are just going to complicate things when it comes to understanding your frame. The next is that you'll want to use auto layout. Now, we've already done that here, wherever possible or wherever sensible. We have the grid here that we use all the way through, and the top navigation there is with auto layout. You can see these little icons here, so that's a good start. The other thing you want to do is just simple things like naming your layers. Now most of these are kind of named. We do have a frame 21 here, but remember, if you need to use auto layout, introduce it to what you've got, or name your layers, you can use Figma's AI to do both of these. So let's just click actually here on the actions icon in the bottom. The shortcut is Command K, and we're just going to rename layers. And it just had that top nav selected. Let's select this entire desktop frame, and it's picked out 11 layers that it wants to rename, which is done now. So that is well prepared now for Figma Make. So all we need to do, this desktop frame's selected, is just Command C just to copy, and then we can go over to this Figma Make file, which is unnamed. So let's call this Make Demo 2. And then here within this prompt box in the bottom left, we can just Command V, paste the Figma frame, and then we can write an accompanying prompt. So for example, we might want to turn this page into an interactive prototype so the buttons work. I'm going to ask it to design a locations page for this website that will work with that icon that we have. The prompt is design a locations page for this website that links from the pin icon in the top navigation menu and lists all the store locations globally. Make up 5 of them. There should be a map with an interactive zip code input to find your closest store. Font is Geist Mono regular. And it tells me now that it's created a store locations page that maintains the brand's aesthetic, so we can go and look at it. Now we can already see here that there's some issues. For example, once again, the font's not rendering, so we'd have to go in and ask it to do what we did before to write some code to make sure we have the right font. It's also made this right image code here, the bespoke one, not aligned on the right hand side like it was before. So there's things we could look at, but I'm going to go ahead and click on this locations icon, and hey presto, it opens up another page. Is there a way to get back home? I can go over the Limon Eyewear word mark, and that does take us back home. So going back to this locations page, let's have a look at what it's created. It's kind of mocked up a map here with it being the whole world. And obviously there's no actual map there, but it kind of mocks up this. And even for the entry with the zip code, you can kind of put numbers into there. So it is a prototype in that sense. It picks sensible locations as well. Tokyo, New York, London, Paris, Sydney. It's not picked some random villages in a rainforest or something like that. So these completely make even the streets like Broadway, Carnaby Street, Oxford Street, Sydney. So that's very cool. And told us this a little bit about what's available at the locations. So there's a little bit of, the kind of AI language model that is obviously involved in this, and it can give you some copy. And this is really helpful because this is far better than lorem ipsum, actually having names and addresses and phone numbers that look realistic services here. That definitely gives you something more than lorem ipsum, and this is something you begin to work with. Now obviously it's kind of broken the look of our design with the way it's done this headline, and the body of the page is off center to the menu. Now if we wanted to fix any of these things, we have to edit it here within Make. You can't, as you would probably wish to do, go from a Figma Make file to now send it back to a Figma Design file, because if you're skilled in Figma Design, it obviously wouldn't take long to just kind of, fix the formatting of this. You can't do that. We have some different ways to edit within Make. So we can use this point and edit tool, which is within this prompt box here in the bottom left. And if you click on that, you can then hover over and find something. So it's made this an H1, for example. I can click on that, and it now gives me all these kind of different options, like for the font that we're using, so I can just change this to, a different font. Let me make it, something that makes it pretty obvious that it's a different font. Okay, and you can change the color in here, and you can change the size. You can even type in here, and you can make it bold, italic. So it gives you this sort of very basic sort of formatting that is available. Or we can edit this with a prompt. So once we've selected something here, because it's selected in the prompt box there, or you can select it from this pop-up menu here, and you can just ask for changes, just as how we iterated before in Figma Sites. The other option that we have is to edit the code directly. So we've selected on preview now. If we click on code here, we can find something. For example, if that was an H1, and you just use Command F to do a find, and then press H1, and we can try and find one of these headlines in here. This is the app. So I want to go into styles folder here, and then we have a global CSS file here. And this has all our styles in there. So we can see here we've got our H1, our H2, etc., etc. So I can edit these things directly if you're familiar with the code and you want to change this. So I'm going to go back to version 1 and try and quickly fix this. So for example, with my point and edit tool, I'm going to click on this whole div here, and I've got this gray background. So I can actually just change the color of this background or remove it. So I'm actually going to do it with a prompt. You can see that has now been removed. Now I want to select this actual H1, and I want to change the color of this. Now to do this, it's probably going to be easier to go in and copy this gray. Then I'm going to select the H1 again, and then just paste in the hex code. Okay. Then I want to select this whole menu, and I'm going to say top nav menu is not centered with the rest of the web page. And it's found why. It was actually using absolute positioning. This has now been horizontally centered, but the width isn't the same as the rest of the page. So we'd have to keep iterating. Our menu bar is still, wrong the way it's cut off at the bottom compared to the home page. So iteration after iteration would be necessary to get this back to what the design should look like. So you can see where this might be a little bit frustrating and limiting in producing prototypes, but perhaps helpful for generating ideas. So what are you planning to use Figma Make for? Let us know in the comments. For me, it still feels like it's in beta, but the potential is there for this to become a powerful tool. So I'm going to keep experimenting with it. Until next time, happy designing.